Of the roughly 4.5 million businesses that get started in the United States every 12 months, 3,897,432 will fail. Okay, I don't remember the exact number, but the point is that 90% of those will die. In fact, depending on how you cut it, between 70 to 90% of all business ideas, startups, and innovations fail. There are, of course, a ton of reasons for this, but in the majority of cases, it's often a misalignment between the offer and what the market needs. Or in simple terms, people ain't buying what you got, no matter how good the idea, the tech, the campaign, or whatever it is that you have. But what if I told you there was a fairly simple way to stack the odds in your favor, to join that 10% that does succeed? And what if I told you that this method doesn't even cost a lot of money? If anything at all. Most likely, it will even save you a lot of money. And it's something that most successful entrepreneurs and business do all the time. And it's called prototyping. Yes, prototyping, not prototyping, prototyping. Hello there, you beautiful people. My name is Yuri. This is The Magic Sauce, where we bring you inspiration for innovation. Prototyping is a term coined by Alberto Savoia in his book, The Right It. Why so many ideas fail and to make sure that yours succeed. It's a method used to quickly and cheaply test the feasibility of an idea or a product before spending lots of time, money, and energy into creating it. It involves creating a simple version of the idea or the concept that you have so that you can go and test it with a group of people and get feedback on it. But isn't that what a prototype is? Kinda, but not exactly. Prototyping and prototyping do seem similar, but they have a slightly different purpose. They both involve taking an idea out of the mind and turning it into something that's real that people can respond to, but the purpose of it is different. Let me explain. A prototype is a physical or digital representation of the product which you can share with other people, and the goal is to find out what's working and what's not. Think like bugs in software before the software gets put out into the world. And therefore a prototype is typically a functional, even though rougher version of the idea. Prototyping, on the other hand, typically comes before prototyping, hence the before. With prototyping, you create a simple version of the idea, physical or digital, to test some of the assumptions and to see whether people are even interested in this idea at all. And this happens so many times. Somebody has an idea and they say, okay, let's take this idea to the market. They build a business around it, they get a designer, they create a website, they get samples from somewhere, they think about packaging, visual identity, they set up a business, they run some numbers against this. They make this idea better and better until they've got the perfect idea, and they launch it in the market, and crickets. So back to the drawing board it is. Make the idea better. Maybe it's the functionality, maybe it's the design, maybe we got the wrong price point. And people start working on it, they iterate, they have a version 3, 4, 5, 6, and keep launching into the market, but nothing happens. And again and again and again until finally they run out of energy and run out of money. And that's unfortunately how most businesses die. And as you can see, you can make your idea better and better and better with better functionality and sleeker design, but if nobody needs it, you're wasting your time. This is that poor alignment between what the market needs and what you offer. A nice example of prototyping is Airbnb for Work. Before launching its Airbnb for Work product, which is designed for business travelers, Airbnb created a quick landing page and a sign-up list to gauge the interest for its product. And they received thousands of sign-ups, which gave them enough confidence to invest in this idea and move it forward. And of course, building a landing page with a sign-up sheet is a very inexpensive and very simple way to gauge whether there's any interest in this. So by the time you do launch, at least you know there's some kind of market for it. So in short, a prototype answers the question, does it work? Whereas a prototype answers the question, is anybody even interested in this? Let's talk about how you too can use prototyping in your business to put you ahead of the competition. But before we do this, let me show you a couple of examples of how other companies are prototyping. A prototype could be as simple as something you can draw on the back of a napkin or something you can build with an old shoebox and a roll of tape. So here are a couple of examples of how we ourselves at The Magic Sauce have used prototypes with client projects, client innovation projects, or how other companies out there have used kind of quick testing of these ideas. Dyson with their sleek fans, blow dryers, and vacuum cleaners is a great example of kind of using prototypes. And if you look back at really early versions of, let's say, their first bagless vacuum cleaner, that's a great example of taking a couple of materials that were lying around, taping it together, and using that as a first version to get feedback from potential users to see whether it's got legs or not. When companies work on apps, one of the first things they will do is, once they have a bit of an idea, is create what they call a wireframe. Now, this can be done kind of hand-drawn, hand-sketched, or you can do this on a computer as well. But it's basically a visual representation of what that app would look like. Something you can do fairly quickly, with which you can then show people and say, hey, this is what it looks like, here's a button, and then it does that. What do you think? When Palm launched the Palm Pilot, which was a tiny handheld computer. Now remember, this is before the iPhone came out. It's like BlackBerry, pre-BlackBerry days. It was bigger than the mobile phones, but at that time they were getting smaller and slimmer and lighter. So this was quite big. People have to be willing to carry something that big around. And the way to test that assumption is to ask people to carry on that little block and take feedback from that. In case you are testing, let's say, a process or a service, one way to prototype that really quickly is to create something called a storyboard. You take a big piece of paper and you map out kind of all the steps, all the things that are happening. Imagine you have a new service at your hotel. What happens when? So imagine a guest comes in the hotel, then this happens, and then they see this, and then they check in over there. You could map that out by really simple renderings, which you can either draw yourself or just find images online. When the late Tony Shea launched Zappos, as an online shoe store, he started by going to shoe stores, taking pictures of shoes that were there, posting those online, putting a price under it, and once it was sold, he would then himself go back to the shoe store, buy the pair of shoes, put it in the box, and sell it to people. Now clearly, it's very common now to buy things online, but it wasn't at that time. So that was a big assumption. Are people willing to buy something like this online? Is this business model going to work? Imagine you had an idea for a new concept restaurant or some kind of culinary experience. So rather than signing a lease in an expensive city for 2 years, could you either have something like a food truck or maybe a little pop-up stand somewhere, a little something easy over the counter to test your soups or sandwiches or sushis or whatever it is that you want to make. And finally, you can always embrace the power of role play. A couple of years ago, I worked on a new concept supermarket with one of our clients, and we had some new features in the store. Well, rather than rebuilding the store and putting in those installations, we kind of mocked it up with a couple of pieces of papers and moving a couple of tables around, and we role played it. We got a couple of actors in, we got people to actually run through the store, and we quickly got lots of feedback from that, so that afterwards, by the time we pitched kind of our idea for the redesign of the supermarket, we had a very strong basis to go like, we think this is going to work and here's why. And that's what prototypes are for. Now that you know what prototyping is, let's look at 3 simple ways you can use prototyping in your next business venture or for your next idea. Number 1, identify the core of your idea and turn it into a really simple, super cheap, something you can make really quickly, scrappily, prototype of that idea so you can go test it with customers, potential customers. I say scrappy here because it's not about getting it right. This is not a let's make a list of like 100 ways to prototype this. Something you can do within the next couple of minutes, within the next hour. Something that you can make with stuff around the house. And if it's digital, even easier. Is there something that you can just quickly mock up with a couple of slides and some images? Something really simple. Number 2, use social media to test these ideas or build a landing page. Buy a quick domain name. You set up a really simple page which has 2 things on it. You ask people just to click, like, which one do you like more? Build a really simple something that you can send to people who you think are your potential customers, who you think would have interest in this. And you go, what do you think? And number 3, and if possible, bring people together, invite people for a pizza party and say that you have something that you're working on, something that's really rough and ready, it's not ready at all. And then when they're there, you show 1 or more of your prototypes and you just have a conversation. You look at how they're behaving and you can do a couple of fun activities with that. It's all feedback, it's all to find out, does this idea have legs or not? Now, if you're game, I've got a little creative challenge for you right here, right now. I'm going to give you 21 seconds to come up with 3 prototypes, 3 ideas for prototypes. You could do this in your mind around my new business of selling secondhand socks. Go. Excellent. So what did you come up with? Leave me a comment below. I want to see your most creative prototyping idea for secondhand socks. While you were doing this, I wrote down a couple here in my phone. Quick note, WhatsApp photo of these socks. I'm going to send them to all my friends and just say, these are my secondhand socks. Would you buy them? And then see what they say. And hopefully the abuse isn't too bad. Or another one here is to take this pair of socks and kind of fold them up a bit. We'll put like a nice little wrapper around it that says secondhand socks worn by Yuri. I'm going to stand on the street and I'm going to see if I can sell them to people. Would you like to buy this pair of socks? And see what they say. Or it could be something even simpler. We could just create a little mock-up of a website, you know, secondhandsocksbyyuri.com. We'll buy a domain name, get early bird 50% off, click here, something like that. By the way, this does not replace due diligence and research. Depending on the complexity of your idea, of the business you're trying to create, of course you're still gonna need to do this, but this is something that comes before this, something you can do really early on. It fits nicely on top of all the other work that you're doing. And maybe you have a team, maybe you want to bring that team together and together brainstorm a couple of ways how you can quickly prototype that idea, that potentially billion dollar idea that you have in your mind. Then go to this video over here and tell you some really simple tips on how to run a kick-ass brainstorm with other people. Thank you for watching.